Inflectra AI was a soft launch to just a handful of customers. People who've been using it have found a lot of speed gained in just some basic things. But we hope that with this, you won't need to go and get approvals to use AI. It's embedded in the system. Those that can't use AI and still necessarily need approvals, there is still the option to add it as a Spira app integration, but the future development of Spira app integration to all the different Gen AI tools out there will have limited R&D efforts. Our R&D efforts will be focused on AWS, and we will share why we've chosen AWS as our FMs, our foundation models, believing that they have at the moment world-class guardrails, AI ethics and governance surrounding the cool innovation that you're about to see. Over to you, Adam.
Okay, so thanks so much. Let's get going. We have some news to share, but let's talk a little bit about Inflectra.ai. It's our new embedded AI solution. And so what I'll be talking about today is trying to keep the slideware to a minimum, get into the live app. I know that's what you want to see. Just talk a little bit about AI in the software lifecycle, some of what we're seeing. I'm going to talk about the functionality that's in Spira, the new Inflectra AI launch, how it works. I am going to give a quick update to show you some of the repeats functionality. That's not necessarily new, but for those who haven't seen it, I'm doing that at the end. I'm also going to talk about what our plans are for Inflectra AI in repeats. Doesn't yet exist, but it's part of our plan for the year. So I'll be able to talk about that as well. So it'll all tie together nicely. And I'm going to literally layer in the big news at the right time. So first of all, nice to meet you. For those who don't know me, I'm the founder and CEO of Inflectra. I was a coder since I was 10, and I occasionally still code on stuff when Simon lets me near the keyboard. And this little picture was generated by Joel from Planet, one of our partners, from LinkedIn. He took one of my pictures on LinkedIn and took some AI to turn it into how he sees me. And I feel quite honored. So even the founders got AI now, so we can be our better selves. One thing I mentioned, if you are watching the recording, that this space is moving incredibly fast. Functionality that was like magic a year ago is now reality. So if you're watching it today, it's current. If you're watching it 6 months from now on our YouTube channel, please note the functionality will no doubt advance very quickly. So this is probably going to be dated by the time it goes onto YouTube. Let's talk a little about AI though in the wider context. First of all, you've been following the press on an AI. Last year, the CEO of Google said that over 25% of code at Google is currently generated by AI. One of our former interns at Inflectra, Peter Gertzmer, is a Google developer, and he confirmed that when I met up with him in New York. That is a true statement. 25% of all code last year is being generated by AI. By 2026, they anticipate 90 to 100% of all code at Google will be generated by AI. And if you look at some of the agentic workflows, things you can do with things like Amazon Q for Developer or Visual Studio Code with Copilot and Klein, I've been messing around with it. I mean, it's incredible. It writes the code, it creates files, it opens frameworks, installs dependencies. Last year, it wrote the code. This year, it literally takes control of your entire IDE and does it all for you. It's really amazing and kind of scary if you've seen it in action. But that's the future we're living in from a development standpoint. At the same time, 80% of all software vendors like us will have Gen AI in their enterprise software by 2026. So whereas I think we launched it in 2023, we're ahead of the curve a little bit. And many people were like, wow, you're putting AI into your enterprise software. That was seen as being ahead of the curve. By next year, this is going to be all hat. Everyone's going to be doing it. So if you're not integrating Gen AI into your capabilities, into the tools you're using, or if the vendors you're using don't have AI planned to be in there by next year, they're going to be behind the curve. That's just the state of play, at least coming from the American market. That's what we're seeing. And one kind of scary statistic, and I think it's actually worse than this. This was published. Stack Overflow, which was the biggest coding site, I think, in the world for sharing tips and tricks. I used it a lot. Their traffic has decreased by 70% since November 2022. And in fact, I looked at this year, they did a big curve. They showed the growth of the site and they showed its current traffic. It's like a big hump. It's almost returned back to when it first launched. Almost no one is using it. So Copilot and Copilot-like tools have completely taken over the market for developer assistance. All of the sort of forums and human-centric sources of content for writing code have been pretty much replaced by tooling and agentic workflows. So that's just crazy. And our partner Planet, I gave a shout out to earlier, they said that in their state of quality report last year, they have seen in their projects using AI a 300% increase in code quantity, but they are seeing a decrease in code quality, which if you are in the testing space, the QA space, you will know that's not a good recipe. I mean, before we had any AI tools, testing was always a bottleneck. It was never development. And now you're increasing the speed of coding and development. You're having it do a lot of the work for you, installing dependencies for you, doing a lot of the tasks that developers were doing, not just the coding. And yet we're expecting to be able to deliver software faster to customers. Quality is going to be a big issue, and already is a big issue. So in terms of what we're seeing in Inflectra, we see that you're going to need to turbocharge testing, quality, project management, agile, everything that is not the development, literally the IDE side of things is going to need to be sped up by equal measure to keep up with the cadence of development. And again, put questions in the chat. So today we are launching for the APAC market, Inflectra.ai, our native solution embedded entirely in our products. Our initial launch of this product is in Spira, so SpiraTest, SpiraTeam, and SpiraPlan. But it is not limited to that. The plan is by the end of the year, ideally by early Q4, to have the same capability natively resident in Repeats as well. I'll talk a bit about that. I can't show that, it doesn't exist yet, but I will talk about what that's going to be, how that's going to affect you in a good way when we get to that section. So what are the capabilities of AI currently? On the Spira side of the house, we had last year and the year before with the Spira apps, some of this functionality, it's all now be consolidated into Inflectra.ai. It lets you generate artifacts from other artifacts. So if you have a requirement, you can write test cases, you can write user stories, you can write scenarios, you can generate test steps, test cases, risks, tasks, you can generate sample code. A lot of the stuff that you've wanted to do to speed up development, speed up testing, can now be done natively in Spira. And then we also have, as part of the roadmap, now we have that natively available in Spira. We can now evolve that much faster, and we'll talk about some of the future plans. On the Repeat side of the house, we've moved very fast on the AI side there as well. Today, you can create automated test scripts directly from manual tests. You can write in natural language. It turns it into RVL automation script. It can also use some of the more advanced AI models from Anthropic to do what's called AI robot and AI tester, where it will actually test an app autonomously. It will also do image comparison and vision-based testing. Some of that functionality is going to change the way we do testing, allow us to test things more easily, like Citrix, that have traditionally been quite hard to test, and geospatial applications. It can also generate test data, and it can also generate, it can also analyze logs and execution results to give better results and better information. And we also have future functionality planned on the Repeat side as well, which is very exciting. On the Repeat side, not in today's webinar, but one thing we are also doing this year, I'll just mention that since we're talking about Repeats, we are also adding support for Linux and for Linux-based execution and headless containerized execution. So we do want to make the Repeats platform even more deployable in a cloud environment without necessarily spinning up machines. So we're fully committed to making the Repeats platform the #1 testing platform. And again, if you have any questions, write them in the chat. I'll probably take questions before we do the live demo and then do a second round of questions then, so we don't wait too long. Now, the big news, and part of the big news is, for those who may not be aware, Inflectra is an AWS partner. We've been a customer of AWS for about 7 years, maybe 8 years now. In fact, Australia was our first region. Back in the day, we used to host all of our cloud versions of Spira on co-located data centers in the United States, which gave reasonable performance for US and European customers. And then we found that for Australian customers, it really wasn't giving the performance that our customers needed. So the first region that went live, actually about 7 or 8 years ago, was Australia in Sydney. We now have that backed up by Melbourne as well. And since that time, we've moved 100% into AWS. We now have regions in Singapore, regions in Canada, United States, in the EU. I think that's it, the 6 regions. And we are looking to bring on other regions as well, like the Middle East, for example, Dubai and Saudi Arabia. Those have just been launched by Amazon. There's also more regions appearing in Latin America, Mexico, and Brazil. And basically, we want to be where customers need us to be. And the reasons for having us in the regions would be either performance, decreased latency, or it's also because of data compliance, data residency, and privacy. If you need certain types of data stored in your country, we can make that happen using the AWS relationship. So, as I mentioned, we have been an AWS partner, a customer for about 7 or 8 years. We've been a partner of AWS about a year. So we joined their partner program last year, focusing initially on DevOps and some of the industries. But the big news, which we literally got awarded today, we have been awarded the Amazon AWS Generative AI Competency. I don't have any images yet for that because it literally was announced about 4 hours ago. And we've just started updating our website, and we're going to press release coming out. But we're one of 8 tools on the AWS marketplace that has that competency. One of 8 companies like CrowdStrike, McAfee. These are C3 AI, some very, very big players in the space. We're one of 8 tools on the marketplace that have the Gen AI competency. You can search it for yourself. We are the only solution listed on the AWS Solution Finder for DevOps, other than Docker. We're the only project management, lifecycle management tool listed. And on the testing solution partner section of Amazon, we're the only tool listed. So we've been making big inroads in working with Amazon to be their solution for lifecycle management and QA. And to do that, we've been leveraging a partnership with them to help us get to market quickly. And this is some of the technologies we've been using. The current functionality in Inflectra.ai does use Amazon Bedrock. We're using a mixture of models. I'll talk about the models actually in the next slide. Right now, that's our primary use case, is to take functionality in Spira for AI, run it through Amazon Bedrock, run it in 6 different regions for high capacity. In the future, we plan on using some of the tools like SageMaker to be able to use the data in Spira in a more sophisticated way to do advanced AI. So right now we'll see it in action. We're taking some of the artifacts like the requirements, the test cases. We can generate data from them, but it's very much artifact by artifact. We want to take a lot of the relationships and the rich data structures we have in Spira, all that traceability data, all that insight we have, and turn that into intelligence. And we'll be using some of the SageMaker functionality to do that. We may also use some of the Amazon Q functionality to embed business intelligence into the platform as well. So those are some of the things we will be using. We're using the orange layer today, some of the green and some of the purple we intend to use in the future. In terms of the models we're using, Amazon gives us a large number of different models to use, and we can use them for different purposes based on speed, price, and capability. For the functionality you're going to see today, we're going to be using a mixture of the Anthropic models, principally Claude Haiku and Claude Sonnet. And we're also going to be seeing Amazon's Nova models, and we're using that as well. And Amazon Nova gives incredibly high performance and high throughput. It's also relatively inexpensive, so we can give you large amounts of AI functionality without making it expensive for you, which is the benefit. And then we can use the Anthropic models where we need more advanced capability like reasoning and chain of thought and autonomous testing, which I'll show you. So there are some features that are specific to Anthropic. Most of the others can be done by Amazon Nova. These are the Nova models. We're actually using, I think, Nova Lite and Nova Micro for Spira, and we're using Nova Pro for Appease. And there are other models coming out like Canvas for image generation and Real. We haven't used those, but we may decide down the road to use some of those other ones as well. There's a new model coming out, I believe, later this year called Nova Act, which is like Sonnet. It's an agentic one that lets the AI actually control computers. Sonnet can do that already. So as you can see, we're working to be at that forefront of AI, not just simply adding simple chatbots and simple solutions that a lot of people are doing on their apps. We're trying to make AI native to the solution and make it an intrinsic part of the product, not just a chatbot on the side that gives you answers to questions. So what's the current state of Inflectra's AI? Well, the first phase, which you remember from last year and early 2023, was we provided some basic plugins that were Spira apps. We did this because we wanted to get to market quickly. We didn't want to have to wait to embed it into the user interface, and it let us go to market quickly. It let customers use different options. So you brought your own license. You could bring an OpenAI license, an Azure license, or an Amazon license. It connected to your account. You controlled it, and you provided the tokens and the spend. And that way you got to go use it quickly, give us feedback, tell us what you liked, tell us what you didn't like. And that was a really good starting point. But it ran into limitations that a Spira app only has very limited access to the user interface in Spira. It also means our customers have to become prompt engineers to some degree. It also means they have to be comfortable connecting Spira to their enterprise LLM or using a third-party LLM. That's more complex from an IT and procurement standpoint. And so we knew it was a good starting point, but it definitely wasn't the destination. And so phase 2, where we are today, is we now have Inflectra.ai as a SaaS feature natively available in the Spira platform. And it's actually using the Amazon Nova models principally. Amazon Nova is not available yet in all regions, so we're actually using Nova in 3 of the regions and Claude in 3 of the regions. So, and as Nova becomes available, we'll transition those other regions over. We're using some technology that you can see of how to do this. I'm not going to go into all that. If you're interested in Q&A, I can talk more about it. We can even have another webinar with our CTO, Simon, who could talk in a lot more detail about what we're using. But we are using a lot of advanced services from AWS to get this functionality into market quickly. One thing I'll mention is we are using a different architecture, and without being too techy, we're using a serverless microservice architecture for the Inflectra AI, which is different to our Spira architecture. Spira is a N-tier web application. For those who've been around for a while, we launched it in 2007. We've been modernizing it along the way, but it does use ultimately an N-tier infrastructure. But we wanted to use a much more modern and high throughput architecture for the AI portion. Someone's raised their hand. If you can write the question in the chat, I'll get to that when we get to the Q&A section. And basically, by doing this microservice architecture, we can deploy the AI at a very high frequency. You can have a large number of people using it, no latency issues. But one other benefit is we can also release that functionality several times a day. So whereas we update Spira once a month, which you're probably familiar with, but because of some of the limitations of an N-tier web app, we can actually deploy Inflectra AI multiple times a week. So as functionality becomes available, we are going to be releasing it at a higher frequency than Spira. If you go to the website, SpiraDocs, and you look at the release notes, you will see we have version numbers for Spira. We just have release dates for Inflectra AI. We are releasing functionality potentially very frequently every few days based on feedback. And that's one of the benefits of separating out the architectures. But when you see it live in the app, you won't know it's a different part of the app. It looks like it's a native part of Spira. It is actually being rendered by a completely different backend, which is pretty cool. And it's also part of our modernization around being cloud native. Now, let's talk about the roadmap a little bit. And this is new today. We actually had a meeting today to confirm this. So I'm giving you hot off the press exclusive. This was not in the EMEA and America version last week because we didn't have this finalized. I'm going to show you the functionality as exists today, but what's coming next? First of all, I'm going to show you features in Spira where you can create test cases from requirements, create test steps. We're going to do more of those, so we'll be able to create more things from other things. We're also going to be extending it to the list pages. So when you're on a requirements list page and you want to create 10 test cases from one requirement and things like that, you can do it in bulk. So there'll be bulk AI functionality. Although I did castigate help chatbots, we are going to add a help chatbot that will make interacting with SpiraDocs more easy. We know that people often go to SpiraDoc to find information when they're on a screen, and it's context-sensitive help. It takes you to the right page. But reality is people are lazy, or and oftentimes they don't know what to ask for, or they're on the wrong page. Having an integrated help chatbot that reads our documentation and KB articles in one place, we know will help customers. But the other 3 big features we want to deliver this year, and they may not be the only ones, but the 3 key ones will be: one is artifact summarization, taking a requirement or a defect or a test case and all the comments and summarizing all the changes and then updating it. So oftentimes you have a defect that's raised and it started life talking about something and then people started investigating and there were comments and comments and comments. By the end, it didn't resemble the original defect and it's very hard to parse out what it means anymore. So having a way to summarize the name, description, and all the comments and text fields and provide a new summary. The second one, which is one of my favorites, is creating a release note snapshot. So take a release in Spira, taking all of the requirements, the test cases, the defects associated with that release, potentially the test sets and risks as well, and coming up with a summary of what that release was about. So giving you basically a release document and release notes from all the artifacts linked to it. And then the last one, which actually is, we think is now going to be the first one of the 3 bottom ones to do, is the ability to do analysis of your requirements and defects and test cases and give them a qualitative assessment. So this requirement is well written. It's got lots of discrete nouns. It's not using its and thems and very ambiguous words. It's clear in the units and measurements. It's a good requirement. Or maybe it would say, this requirement is poorly written. It's very difficult. It has lots of ambiguity. We recommend you rewrite it in this particular way based on the project description. So using AI to basically improve and refine the quality of the particularly requirements, because that's the start of the life cycle, but also potentially other artifacts as well. So those are some of the features we anticipate coming in 2025. We chose these because they're high impact, they're going to be quick, easy to deliver, They don't require major architectural changes in terms of ingesting large amounts of data. Some of that stuff we'll do in 2026 when we introduce more technologies around RAG and vector databases that will let us do more of that, I would say, high intensity insight analysis, which we know many of you are asking. So that's the roadmap for Inflectra AI. Before we get into the demos, I thought maybe take a quick pause to see if there are any questions in the Q&A or in the chat we can answer.
How will Inflectra AI change or improve Repeats? Currently, if we are not using SpiraTest, can we generate tests using prompts? Is this going to improve or change in Inflectra AI? Yes, June, I think you may have joined a little bit later. Adam covered this early on in terms of Repeats. It will be embedded later this year for that purpose.
Yes, and I can talk about, we are demonstrating Repeats a little bit as well at the end. Inflectra AI is launched in Spira, but there is going to be a Repeats component as well. Now, in terms of the pricing, just Camille put the pricing in the chat. One thing we decided to go with is making sure it's easy for people to understand. We're not going to be counting tokens. It's going to be very similar to tools like Gemini, where you buy an Inflectra AI subscription and it's all you can eat in a sense. You buy the subscription based on the number of concurrent users in your Spira license. So if you're a 20 Spira concurrent user license holder, you have to get a 20 license of Inflectra AI. But after that, your teams can use it as much as they want. We're not saying you only have 10,000 tokens a week or anything like that. It's unlimited. We control the models, so we control which models we're using. We're using ones that are relatively efficient for text, that aren't super expensive. And that way we can give you this feature at a very good price, but also consistent. You know, your users can use it without worrying about what it's going to cost you. There's no hidden bills, no hidden spend. And that's what we're doing with Spira. When it comes to Repeats, I'll talk a bit more what our plans are there, but it's actually going to be quite similar as well. A couple of things to mention. First of all, to use Inflectra AI, you have to have an Inflectra AI subscription added to your account. So I'm gonna answer some of the FAQs first of all, because we get these questions a lot. Is it available in SpiraTest, SpiraTeam, and SpiraPlan? Yes, yes, and yes. So Inflectra AI is available in all three flavors of Spira. It is tagged to your number of users that you have. So if you have a 10 user license of Spira, you have to get 10 users of Inflectra AI. There's license parity. If you're familiar with Jira and the plugins, it's quite similar to that. Now, that's different to Repeats, because Repeats is by design, you can have 100 licenses of Spira and 20 floating licenses of Repeats. We did that deliberately because we know that not every Spira user is an automation engineer. So that makes a lot of sense. But in Spira, we want everyone to use it. Anyone can use it, so it's much more efficient from a user standpoint. You're not managing more user provisioning. It's just available for everyone. Once it's available in your instance, and it is only available for cloud customers, I will also say, so if you are an on-premise customer of Spira, you can still use the old Spira apps and connect that to your Azure model. But to use Inflectra AI, you do need to be a cloud customer. It is a cloud-only product, and it will only be available for cloud customers. We can migrate you if you're interested, and we do have some financial incentives from AWS that we can pass on, which to make that less expensive. So you're a cloud customer, you go in, you either sign up for the trial and add it on, or you buy it for your current instance. Once you do that, you will not see it at all in the application. One of the key things at Inflectra, as you know, is we believe very strongly in security, privacy, and compliance. And one of those things is you are in control of the AI. So this is very important because many customers have said to us, we want to experiment with the AI at our pace. We don't want every user using it all at once. We were actually in a pre-sales last week with a customer in the UK. They were looking at us and another tool, and the other tool was knocked out simply because the AI was enabled always on and couldn't be turned off, and they didn't want that. So we have taken the GDPR kind of approach. It's opt-in. So make sure, go to your general settings, make sure you've turned it on. If you don't have it turned on, as you can see here, you won't see it in the application. So that's the first thing. Turn it on at the system level. It's a big gotcha. Second thing, turn it on at the product level. It has to be enabled. It's double opt-in. It has to also be enabled at the product level. So you go to Library Information System, which is right here, click on it, and you go into the View Details, or the other way to get to it, and you make sure it's on here as well. So first of all, that's the first couple of gotchas. It has to be enabled, system and product. Okay, we've done that. Looking good. So now, you won't see anything on this page because it's not on this page. So whenever you go to a page that has it available, you will see it appear. So let's go ahead and create a new requirement. I'll do it on this page. I'm going to go create a new requirement. I'm going to use a user story kind of format. And, so as a customer, I want to, what do I want to do? I want to, transfer funds between, or let me do something different. Let me, more consumers, more interesting. I want to book a train between two cities. Okay, so let's go in there. I'm on the page. As a customer, you see everything here. Now, there is a new icon you'll see in the top right. It's this little colorful icon. If you hover the mouse over it, there's this cute little animation thing. Hover off the mouse, it changes back. Click on that. That's your sidebar. Now, for right now, it gives me 3 different tasks. It says I can create test cases, I can create tasks, I can identify risks. Great. Now, what if I wanted to create a BDD scenario? I remember I can do that. I'm sure I've read I can do that. Now, because this requirement doesn't support scenarios, that feature is not available. Let's go ahead, though, and let me change this to a use case. Hit save. And now, because I've changed the type of requirement, we do support scenarios. It's down here. You'll see the BDD option appears. So it is context sensitive. That means that if the user has to have permissions to do the task, the version of Spira has to support that. So if it's SpiraTest, you won't get some of these options because they don't have tasks. And the requirement type or whatever artifact is has to support that option as well. So it's completely context sensitive, and that way users don't get confused. Like, well, where did the scenario go? I don't see one because it doesn't support it. So let's go ahead and do these one at a time. And I'm in the US region. This is my instance, so it's going to be going out to a Nova instance hosted in my region. Back to data privacy. I'm just going to pop out for 1 second to our website. I want to re-emphasize, we do have a responsible AI policy. We also follow data privacy. These are our 6 different regions. As I said, we may add more in the future. The data privacy is the same between the AI and Spira. So if Spira is hosted in, say, Australia, in Sydney or Melbourne, the Bedrock large language model is also resident in Australia. So nothing is leaving Australia, nothing is leaving the AWS secure environment, nothing's going out to some large language model somewhere that's completely public. So the data is secure. That's the first thing. Second thing is none of the data is being used for training, even for the models that we are hosting in that region. So when we sent it this as a customer, I want to book a train between 2 cities, that's obviously not particularly proprietary. But if this was a requirement that's much more sensitive in your organization, we are obviously asking the large language model to assist in writing the test cases, and we'll see that. It's not training itself on the model. The model does not persist any of that data. It's transient. So that's really important. Okay, so let's go ahead and create, let's do a BDD scenario first of all. So I'll just choose that. And when I do that, what it does is it initiates the request. You'll see these little dots appear. That means it's doing something. And once it's finished, it will tell me what it did. I have generated 4 scenarios, which is super. I scroll down. There they are. And they're written in that nice BDD syntax, Gherkin syntax. I've also got the BDD Spira app running, which turns the color highlighting on, in case you're wondering where that happens. It formats it without that, but you won't get the colors. So I just had that to make it look even nicer. And there's my 4 different scenarios. And it covers a variety of different use cases. So it's 4 different use cases tied to that one requirement. So that's pretty cool. The next thing I would want to do, if this is a real requirement, is probably write some test cases, since people like to do testing. Let's go create some test cases. And that's running.
Just while we're waiting, Adam, a question. Do we need to turn on the beta features in the Spira system to enable Inflectra AI?
No, you do not. Good question. So you may have seen that in, where was it? It's general settings. Good question. You do not, mine happens to be turned on because I think I was showing time tracking in a demo. You do not need this turned on at all. In fact, time tracking is not in beta anymore. But I don't think there's anything in Spira now which is beta. But we have that as available so that when I'm doing demos, I can show things that are, up and coming. This is not considered beta. Yeah.
In the free trial, you don't need to turn on other than tick the box that you want it. Where
That's correct.
Right?
Yes, that's a really good point. Yes, I should clarify. The double opt-in is for production accounts. For trials, we made it a single opt-in, mainly because we know that new trial prospects tend to be in a hurry and don't read documentation, and so we wanted to make it more efficient for them. So if you're a trial user, and you sign the checkbox on sign in to add it to your trial, we actually turn it on by default, and all the sample projects have it turned on by default. That's for trials. So for production, it's double opt-in, but for trials, we wanted to streamline the onboarding. So that's a really good point. I've forgotten to mention that. I also now, so while we were talking, it has created different scenario test cases. Here's all the test cases you can see here. If I click on the link, it will open them. Or if I want to show you them on the grid, I just go to test coverage and hit refresh, and there you'll see we have different test cases. We've got a variety of tests. We've got, for example, I want to book a train. Not only is it testing the train, but it's testing a variety of happy path and edge cases, negative paths as well. So, for example, check the booking process for a train, test responsiveness, accessibility, error handling, edge cases, cancellation. It's a good one, especially if I'm in the UK, lots of cancellations, unfortunately. So let's go ahead and look at one of these. I'll do control click to bring up another tab. And here you can see we've got a 3-step test case. It's got the options here. Select the train, click book now, enter the details. It's got some sample data. And if you get that's an interesting one there. Go over to this one. Let's look at a cancellation idea. A cancellation. Maybe we'll do one more. Let's try something a bit more technical. How about accessibility? Because that's something we always forget to do that, and it is required by law. And so there you go. So it's giving us some ideas.
Couple of questions. Where did the test cases land if in regards to test case creation? Daniel has a folder base on product features, so that was one. And then Ellen's asking, how can we get the BDD functionality if we're using SpiraTest?
Okay, good question. First of all, BDD functionality is in SpiraTest. The only thing I think you have to do is turn on use cases, which is change the requirement to a use case, or if you don't want to call your requirements use cases, which is completely understandable, just go into the types of requirement and check the has steps box or has scenario box. Yeah, this one here. Just change that here. I'm pretty sure it's in SpiraTest. There's a possibility. I know we changed what's in each feature. I'm pretty sure it is. If it's not, it's definitely in SpiraTeam and Plan. But I think it's in SpiraTest. But tasks is not, risks is not. That's for sure. But I'm pretty sure the BDD is. But that's the one gotcha. Turn on the steps in that type of requirement, and that will do it. In terms of where they land, they do, I believe, land in the root. That's the one, because obviously we're not telling it where to put them. So it will put them in the root, so you would need to move them afterwards, I believe. We can check. Let's have a quick look. Let's click my filter. And let's change it by, I make the most recent ones. Yep, I think they're in the root. So they are in the root, so you would need to go in here and do a shift select, and then move, and then just move them into the right folder. So that is one thing. So that's interesting feedback. Maybe we have it so it can ask you where to put them. Now, one thing I wish you mentioned is you may have looked at this and go, well, this looks like a bunch of buttons. But down the bottom, it looks like some text. It looks like a chat. It's actually not a chat, but we did design this to look like a chat by design, because the intention is to give you the ability to say something which doesn't exist yet. So obviously I can't do it right now. But the idea would be you could say in the chat and say, thanks for generating those 12 test cases or 10 test cases. Can you put them in a different folder for me? Can you generate 10 more, but I want them to be include load of performance, or actually security. I think they have actually, but so the idea is that these buttons will be the initial actions, but there will be options to refine them. Or it might be my requirement changed. Can you update the test to match that? So the intention is we will be adding much more interactivity into this sidebar. We've just gone for, again, the low-hanging fruit, the simple use cases, make them seamless, and then build onto that. Now, even though these look quite simple, we've spent a lot of time actually refining the prompts to make these work with every requirement, lots of different requirements. You'd be surprised, like sample data. Sometimes it was giving us sample data for every step, which was meaningless. Sometimes it was giving us no sample data. We also ran into issues where I don't know why it was during test cases and test steps in Spanish for a requirement that was in English. So we spent a lot of time optimizing these. The team spent significant time since the soft launch really refining the prompts to get these to give good data back. Camille mentioned guardrails earlier on. One other thing is, and before I answer that question, there are guardrails running in this, unlike the old Spira apps, because it's in our model, in our account. If you do things like I want to basically build a bomb, which we have tried, it prevents you doing things like that. So there are guardrails to prevent offensive content. We've even had it attempt to do things that were racist or abusive, and we have built in guardrails to prevent that happening. So there's a lot more safety in this feature than in the old Spira apps, where we were connected to your model and actually relying on you doing that, which we know most people don't want to have to spend the time to do.
Does the generated test cases and generated test case data comply to best practice, boundary testing, testing for valid special chars in name fields, accessibility against WCAG, etc.?
Right now, it takes the name and description of the requirement and uses that together with some standardized prompts to build this out. So if your requirement includes that meta information, it will incorporate that into what it generates. It isn't going to do it otherwise. So if your requirement has something around that, it's going to take that description and it's going to use that. The plan is to do more things around that. Like, for example, one thing you can see right away if I go into one of the samples. Here we go. No, this one. Yeah, no, where's all my data? This one. It's giving me sample data. Now that's, kind of cute, but you would much rather use the parameter feature in Spira to generate actual parameters. So, things like that we're going to optimize. So right now it doesn't do that. I wouldn't say it doesn't fully answer. It fully doesn't fully do what the questioner is answering all the time. If you put it in your requirement, it obviously would do that, but it doesn't do it systematically. And that's something we do want to make better. Have it use parameters. Also have it look at the other test cases that are already in your repository, and use an insert link. So right now, if you've got test cases in your repository that do common things, it isn't going to reuse it. It's just going to generate steps. You have to go in and refine the test case and include those common components. But obviously, we have those common tests. Why not use them? So that's part of the plan. Question?
Thumbs up from Simon. Thank you.
Oh, cool.
John's asking, found in the trial that if you include a standard name, then a generated test will include some of the standard requirements, but not all. Yeah. It does get smarter over time, John. Ria, you had a question, but it seems to have disappeared from the chat. So if you wouldn't mind just typing that up again, that would be helpful. And thanks, Luke, for sharing the BDD blog article for Ellen. It's lovely to see partners helping us out on the chat. Thank you.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. And the BDD, and for those who are into BDD, there is the BDD Spira app, which I have running here. That does two things. It adds that nice syntax highlighting that you saw. Without the syntax highlighting, you do get the bold and you get the bullets. You don't get the color.
Okay.
But the other thing you get is the feature file export, which is really cool. So you go in here and say, give me a feature file. And now that's not Inflectra.ai, that's just existing, but it's right there.
Ria's question, can AI and Spira help prioritize which tests to run by analyzing factors like risk levels, past test failures, or defect history? For example, could it automatically suggest running tests?
Great question. So in Inflectra.ai today does not do that. Inflectra.ai does what I'm going to show you today, which is basically, you'll see it creates test cases, tasks, risks from requirements. It creates some sample code. It creates mitigations, create risks, create test steps. It's mostly a create X from Y solution today. Again, that was to get the first version out. As I show you some of the other things we'll be doing, which will be analyzing, summarizing a lot of those use cases. That's all relatively low-hanging fruit. The plan is to do what you described. Repeats does have some of that came out in the latest version that I can quickly show you. There's a webinar we did 2 weeks ago that talks about that. I can show you an article on it at the end. I can't demo it live, but I can talk about it. That can analyze flaky tests, and it can analyze previous runs and give you some insights. The plan is to do that in Inflectra.ai. It's just not available yet. The reason why is to do that, we're going to have to take all those historical test runs and risks and data you talked about, and we have to put it into what's called a vector database, which is a way that allows AI to efficiently read all that data. Because what you can't do efficiently and affordably for all of us is take the entire Spira database and all the data and dump it into AI. What you have to do is take the key data and you extract it in from the Spira database, put it into a vector database that's AI ready, and then have the AI use that. So there's some data transformation steps we have to do some of these more involved multi-artifact, multi-dimensional use cases where you're taking multiple dimensions of data, risks, test runs, prioritization, to do a lot of that. So it's definitely part of the roadmap. It is not in the current version, and it isn't the first set of things we'll be doing either, because again, we want to get some functionality out quickly that we know delivers value and productivity improvements, and then we'll work on some of the, honestly, the harder stuff around that. But it's definitely part of the vision and plan. And that's why we did choose the Amazon stack to build upon, because we wanted something that not only gave us the functionality for the next few months, gives us functionality for the next few years. And a lot of it will be doing what you described. So a long-winded answer to a question. Hopefully that's okay. Just to back in the demo, we have created the scenario, the test cases, and the other thing we often do a lot is identify risks, particularly if you're using SpiraTeam or SpiraPlan. Risks are an important thing because, as my friend Shyam always says, if you don't manage risks, risks will manage you. So we can identify risks with this particular requirement. It's a relatively simple requirement, booking trains. It's found 2 risks, data integrity risk and downtime. Let's go click on that risk and see what it looks like. There's my risk. And it's given me a description of what the risk would be. It wrote the name and the description. It even formatted the text for me. So it's pretty cool. And let's think about, well, this is a nice risk. I can use my, one thing to mention, I didn't mention this. One thing that's different between this functionality and the old Spira apps, we are now tagging everything if it's been AI generated. So one piece of feedback we got, I think from some people on this call was, if you generate anything like a test case or a requirement or a risk, you need to know it's been generated by AI. So we do now add a meta tag to everything that's AI generated, which you can then remove once a human has reviewed it and given it the thumbs up, or deleted it if not. But that's one really important distinction. Another thing we've done is, and you on that requirement, if I go back there, you'd see it. When we change something, when we add something to it, it becomes marked AI augmented, and we'll see that in a second because we've got this risk. With the risk, we might decide to give it a probability and an impact. Right now, that's still a manual thing. Targets a risk score. AI could also help with some of that in the future. But how do I mitigate this risk? Well, guess what? We can help with that too. So we can generate some mitigations. So now we're taking the risk that we just generated, and it will now mitigate it for us. 14 mitigations. Wow, that's pretty good. So there's 14 different mitigations. Well, these are pretty impressive actually, because they've got, it's got disaster recovery plans, SLAs, response plans. So it's got basically a framework for mitigating this risk. And because we did change the artifact, it's now marked as AI augmented. So AI generated means it's synthetic. AI augmented means it could be partly synthetic. And if you see both in it, obviously means it's been created by AI and then updated by AI subsequently. So that's an important thing we have added in this new version. Okay, so that's identifying risks. That's all on the requirement side of things. The other thing we can do if we go back to our requirement is we can also generate tasks outside of QA. If you are using it for more project management, SpiraTeam and SpiraPlan, risks and things are great, but also you can generate tasks, and that lets you build out the work breakdown structure for implementing this feature. So we want to book a train between 2 cities. It's going to give us an initial set of tasks, and then you could then download that, put it into your favorite Vibe coding tool, and build out some code. And it's developed, I think, 6 or 7 different tasks for us. Set up payment gateway, create booking form, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Different features. And then we can use functionality. If you want to prototype this, we can even go in here, and you can even go in here and say, guess what? Let's implement that and then test it. So you can go in here and use AI and say, generate some code with tests. And I want to use, it's a web app, so maybe I'm using .NET, so I'll use NUnit. And it will attempt to build out a booking form and then with tests to go with it. So something like this. And it's built me a test fixture in NUnit to test the booking form. Now, this is obviously, I will be honest, these are mostly stub functions. This is something that would get you going. It's not going to be good enough for production use. If you are interested in doing this for real, I would recommend looking at things like Visual Studio Code and some of the new agentic developer tools. They're pretty amazing. So they will build entire apps for you. There's a great video from Visual Studio Code, which I saw where the guy wanted an app to do list management, like a to-do list, and that's all the prompt said basically, and then the 6 or 7 requirements, and the Vibe coding tool took those requirements and basically built the entire app. And that's going to be the future. I mean, you take the requirement in Spira, maybe you take those 6 BDD scenarios, and you open up Visual Studio Code, connect it to GitHub Copilot, or connect it to Amazon Q for developers, or you can even just use Claude running in Claude Desktop, whatever your favorite tool is, and you can just take the requirements from Spira and say, generate the app, builds the app. Then you take this to build the unit tests, because everyone forgets the tests. In that video they did online, they built the app in that 30 minutes. They didn't do any tests. So yet again, everyone forgets the testing. So Spira can make that super easy for you. So that's generating some tests and there's also would generate a sample implementation of the actual app as well. So you can go in there and see that. It also has syntax highlighting, as we just saw. So it's really cool. Now, the other thing we can do is if we go back to our test cases, sometimes you shouldn't, but it does happen. Sometimes you have no requirement. So this was a test we generated for this one requirement, the booking the train. But let's say there was no requirement for it. Pretend there's no requirement there. So there are things we can do on the test case page. We can go here. We can generate test steps. We've done that already. You can also reverse engineer a requirement from the test case. And so what it's done is it's written a requirement for a basic performance test. There we go. And that's pretty cool too, actually. And I've been clicking around, talking, doing things, but what I think if you drill it back a second, what have I done? I've basically built for one feature, which is again a very high level feature, but I've basically built my entire set of test cases, test steps. I've built all my risks, identified all my risks. I've mitigated many of them. I've potentially I've added more requirements if I found the ones that are missing. In the space of maybe 5-10 minutes in a conversation whilst talking to you on a webinar. This would have taken me probably hours of work. Now, I still have some work to do. I'm going to go through all these ones that are AI generated or AI augmented. I'm going to review them. I'm going to obviously look at them and make sure they're right. I'm not going to just take what AI has given me. But even with this first version, I've saved significant amounts of time. Now, as we start to add more functionality, it's only going to get better. But in this first version, we're seeing massive productivity improvements. I mean, just the amount of clicking you're doing and not doing is incredible. When we show Spira now in a demo, we almost always are going to use the AI functionality. So, for example, when we do a demo when we're integrating with Jira, we bring in the user stories from Jira using the data sync, and I want to show how the testing part works and push some bugs back. I just go into the user story and say generate test cases, run a few of them, log some bugs, and now I've got defects in Jira. So I mean, it just really speeds up the use of the tool because even though you will still have to edit things and review things and use your brain to, make sure what it's generating is correct, it just saves so much time versus clicking new requirement, new test case, add step, save step. It's like cut and paste when you're doing it in any tool. By giving you a really good first draft, it's saving a lot of time. It also is finding things you might have missed. In those list of risks, there were 10 different risks, maybe more even. I'm sure there are 2 or 3 I wouldn't have thought of. Same thing in the test cases. I forgot about the cancellation. A lot of times it's not just saving you time, it's also finding edge cases and suggesting edge cases that you might have missed. So that's some of the value that we're seeing, both from using it internally, which we are, but also with our customers. So before I go any further, any questions on the functionality? It can be anything we have in the chat or
Yeah, we've had
Q&A.
lots of questions directed to us just as the host. Some of them are already ideas on enhancements. Thanks, Paul.
Okay.
So yeah,
Wow.
I do encourage you to share ideas via the support email address, even if you're not a customer. That support email address that I popped in the chat is open to people who are using the free trial as well. It does not cost you anything. It comes with the subscription, be it free or paid. And a question from Wang. Can Inflectra AI perform analytics of
So
consumer actions, transactions performed in an app system, including data, and generate the test scenarios, unit tests, integration tests?
right now, what you're seeing is the functionality as it exists in version 1, which again is literally the first version of the tool. The plan is it will definitely be able to analyze data in Spira. In terms of looking at external applications, the Repeats has some of that already. So let me share. Again, it was in the webinar we did I think about a month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago now, when we released 8.4. Let me just find the article while we're talking, because we did release the newest version of Repeats, which has some really cool functionality. So if I go to Repeats, you can see my screen. If there are any of the questions that are worth reading out to the wider group, we can also do that too if they're in the message to host.
So for customers who have been using the AI feature function in Repeats, if they start using Inflectra AI, do they still get to keep all of their feature functions that are already in flight?
So let me talk about Inflectra AI is not yet available in Repeats. Let me tell you how that's going to work. And again, that's in development. But first of all, just to answer the question about analytics, in Repeats, there's something called Test Runner. It was released in Repeats 8.4, and it includes a variety of pieces of functionality. It can analyze test results, and it can generate graphs and charts and metrics. So you can see here, it's giving you a plot of flaky tests, and it can generate a test report from a large volume of automated test results. So in the repeat side of things, the latest AI release does have analytical tools for different such scenarios. It has a flaky test analysis. It's got this one here, which is time bound. It's got a root cause analysis tool for recent failures. So on the repeat side in particular, there is the summary report. We can share this article link in the chat. There's a lot of functionality on the repeat side that we have got already that has these analytics. So please look at that. That's all live today in Repeats 8.4, which is in general availability. So that is definitely out there already. Now, in terms of what Repeats AI is and how is it different from what we have today? So Inflectra AI is basically the ability to have AI functionality and not have to bring your own model, not have to become a prompt engineer, not have to spend a lot of time configuring everything. It also means we're basically taking on the burden of the costs and the administration of it. So the vision of Inflectra AI is it's not just for Spira, hence the name. So if I just so the idea is that as a customer, you will buy, say, SpiraTest or SpiraTeam or SpiraPlan. You have a subscription, and then you add Repeats on, which people do already, and then you add Inflectra AI onto your subscription. So now you have Spira, Repeats, and Inflectra AI already. That Inflectra AI that you already have in Spira, so the one that you already are using today with this in Spira, if you sign up for it, when you connect, the plan is going to be when you connect Repeats to Spira, it will automatically have access to the Inflectra AI solution. And now what that means is, on a fundamental level, what it means is when you go to this AI dashboard today, you have to go and you have to connect it to a model, Bedrock, Azure, OpenAI. You put this information in here, you put the secret key and all this. And when you use it, it's basically consuming data from your account. And depending on what model you choose, it may be charging a lot of money, a little money. A lot of customers, don't necessarily want to have the burden of managing all that. So what will happen when Inflectra AI comes live is it'll be the same functionality initially as we have in Repeats today. It'll just be exactly the same AI functionality that you're used to, except this whole screen will basically change to being, do you want to use Inflectra AI? Yes. And at which point it's basically free to use in Repeats already. Or it would be, oh, I actually want to use my own model because maybe I don't want to buy Inflectra AI or for whatever reason it is. You can still use these other options as well. We're not getting rid of them, but the first option that will be the default will be Inflectra AI. It's part of your subscription. You're not having to worry about tokens or costs or provisioning. We'll manage all of that. The other benefit will be when you use this today in Repeats, if you notice here, I'm using Claude Sonnet 3.5. Now, Claude Sonnet 3.5 is a very powerful AI model. It is incredibly powerful. It can do some of the things I can show you later on, the computer use, the robot, if we have time. It does a lot of the very advanced autonomous testing. So it does the most advanced agentic AI workflows, which is fantastic. But it's expensive and it's quite slow because it's so powerful. So when I'm doing much more simple use cases, like I'm going in here and I take these manual test steps that I've got from Spira and Repeats, and I want to turn those into into test, into RVL, into codeless test. So I want to take these natural language here and I want to turn that into AI like this. I don't need Sonnet to do that. I can use Claude Haiku, I can use Nova, probably Micro, maybe Pro, but I can use a much cheaper, faster model. So it'll be faster and cheaper. But the way we're doing it today is I have to use one model. So with Inflectra AI, what we're doing is we know all the different use cases. We know all the different features in all our tools. We will dynamically use the right model for the right job to optimize the cost and speed. So the idea is that it's like when I use Gemini on Google, I don't have to worry about, is it using this Gemini or that Gemini? I don't know. I'm just asking it a question. I give it a spreadsheet. I type in text. I upload an image. Analyze this. I mean, I don't know what I do. I give it what I give it what I give it. It gives me the results I need. That's what we want the experience to be. Is that we might be using a vision model, to do some of the vision-based testing. We'll use an action model like Sonnet to do some of the autonomous testing where we're clicking on things without any objects on the page. So it's that combination of models that will be the initial benefit. That's sort of day one. Day one is basically you keep the functionality in Repeats, but now you haven't got to buy it separately. It's completely baked into your existing subscription. You have Spira, you've got Inflectra AI, you've got Repeats, you have everything you need. Your team can use it. No one's worried about managing cost, managing quota. Now, second generation will be, which will be next year most likely, will be, well, we have all this amazing data in Spira. We have all this amazing data in Repeats. How do we share that data? And I think that's what people are asking. And that's absolutely the vision. So just to give you a little bit of an idea what that means, AI robot is a really cool piece of functionality. If I'm going to show it to you right now, it's where you can test an application without any traditional automated testing script. So for example, to do automated testing normally, you would have a script that looks something like this. This is my coder script. These are my buttons. I go over here into my object tree, and I have to have objects which are basically locators pointing to things. So that's a link. There's a text box, there's a button. And these are things that Repeats has learned on the application. And if you do automated testing, you know this is a problem because when you change some of the screens on the app breaks, the test stops working, you've got to refactor the test, and now you spend more time fixing the test than using the test. And that's the Achilles heel of automated testing. That's why we still have any manual testing to some degree. Now, with AI, you can do a lot of testing now without any of this. Using AI Robot, you can basically go in here and say, well, actually, I want to play, I want to play this. I want to play this test. And all it does is I open up the browser and I say, log in with this login and password, and I want you to change the genre of a book. So let's go ahead and do that. Hopefully this is all set to work. Let's see. It should launch Chrome in a sec. This is using Sonnet, which is, again, a powerful model for Anthropic, and it will launch a browser and it will literally test the app. Yep, that's the one. Let's see. And it's cool, but I'll explain why. I'll explain why I say this is going to require, to make this useful, is going to require a lot more coordination between Spira and Repeat. So right now, what this is doing is it's going to the login page, and it's actually figuring this out on the fly. I've just told it log in with librarian and password librarian. I haven't said there's a button called login. I haven't said there's a text box called username. I've just given it the most high-level English functional description, and it's going to do it. It's going to log in. I've told it to change the genre of the book from, I think it's from historical fiction to detective fiction for Jane Eyre. I didn't tell it there's a navigation bar. I didn't tell it there's a book link. I didn't say anything like that. I just told it what I wanted to do. It's now figuring it out, and it should, usually it does it, hopefully it does, figure out there's a books link and to go to books and change it. Yep, it's figured it out. And this is a simple app that we test a lot. We know it. We should generally know it works. Now, it's amazing that it can do this. First of all, it actually is just amazing that it can do this automatically without any instruction. It's able to figure out how to test. It's basically doing what a human tester would do. It's simply reading the instructions and figuring it out as it sees the page. It's visually looking at the graphics. There's no locators. There's no traditional automations going on. It's literally looking at the page, seeing what's on the page, and it's literally testing it. Now, it is slow. Like if you've played a Selenium script or a Repeats traditional script or a Playwright script, you'll know it's fast. It's click, 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 click. It's slow because it's literally figuring it out as it goes. And that also means it's expensive because it's doing a lot of AI requests. Okay, so it did that. It's going to log out now. And so that's why this is still a little bit impractical for large applications because it's quite expensive and it's quite slow. The second issue is if you start to try this on a more complex app is, if I showed you as a human, and I let me do it. Demo's done. And I said to you, go test that app. You'd find it very easy as well. You could click through the app and figure it out. If I told you, here's ServiceNow or say SAP or some complex app that's not trivial, and you're not an accountant, you're not a sales clerk, you're not someone who's that job it is to use that app. Maybe it's Epic or Cerner and you're in a hospital environment. I mean, there's a good chance that you couldn't figure out how to use it exactly and certainly test it in a comprehensive way. Well, the AI is just as going to flummox by it as you would be. And that's the problem, is that for that very simple app, the Repeats AI is able to do that. It's able to figure out what needs to be done and test it. Stop the testing. Oh, it's controlling my mouse. Stop. Okay. So the key, though, is how do you make it handle those larger apps? Well, the key is you have to give it the data about your app. Now imagine you have all the requirements for your app, all the documentation, everything that describes how the app is meant to work. And that's fed into Spira because we have that in Spira already. And now we feed that to the AI engine when it's doing that test. Now we start to make it be able to do those autonomous tests for real life complex applications, not just the very trivial, log into the page and, go to one grid and change a book, because that's quite easy. So the data in Spira and the quality of your requirements and the quality of your documentation is actually going to determine how testable your app is, as much as the app. In fact, maybe more than the app. Whereas with traditional automation, it's really about the quality of the app. Have they instrumented it well? Do they have good labels on things? Do they have good buttons? Do they have good IDs? All that stuff that we deal with in automation today. that's actually less important in the future than it will be. Do I have good requirements? Do I have good documentation? Do I have good test scenarios? All the stuff that Inflectra AI wrote for us about 10 minutes ago in Spira, that's going to be the key information to make automated testing practical on large scale for large complex apps. And so the question was, how does Inflectra AI going to integrate with Spira? And Repeats. First of all, it's having it available for all customers without worrying about managing quota, managing tokens and stuff. Having a single AI engine behind all both our products. But the second thing is all that data sharing is going to be critical because Repeats here is going to need to have all that Spira data in here so that when you run the test, it isn't just working off this, two-line test case. It's looking at that two-line test case in the context of the wider knowledge it has of the application it's testing to know how to test it.
Thank you.
And that's key.
Thanks.
So that's kind of that's the big story. Hopefully
We're
that was
at
helpful.
the top of the hour. For those that need to drop off, the session will
Yeah.
be recorded and we will address some of the questions still coming in. So Ria's asking another question about Inflectra AI in Spira. Can AI in Spira help prioritize which tests to run by analyzing factors such as risk level, pass failures, defect? I think we addressed.
Not today, but that is part of the plan. So currently today, it doesn't. It primarily will be used for a generating test, generating risks. The plan is for it to do that. The next set of functionality, if you missed the earliest parts, will be summarizing data, generating release notes, taking the data we have, consolidating it, and also analyzing requirements and analyzing defects to give you suggestions on how to improve them. It won't be doing prioritizing yet, but that is part of the plan.
And how quickly can Inflectra AI generated linked requirements and detailed test steps in large scale projects?
You saw me doing it today. Currently, you do it. You go to a detail page, an individual one. You say, generate test cases, and so it takes 2 or 3 seconds to do that. In the next version, which will be coming out, one of the key things I mentioned earlier will be on the list page. So right now, you have to go to this page and go Inflectra AI and say generate, which is great for one requirement. What you'll be able to do in the future is go to this page. You'll be able to say, shift select like a bunch, and say, and then there'll be the equivalent sidebar and say generate test cases. The advantage also is, first of all, it will do it for say 10 at once. The second thing is it can also look at them as a group and look for commonality between them. So the intention is to have that functionality on the list pages so you can do it in bulk. And that way, to do it for like 10 requirements will take maybe 20 seconds, for example.
Yep. Daniel's asking, when can we expect AI functionality to be extended to Spira API? Smiley face.
Um, that's an interesting question. And actually, all right, I'm working on a little hobby project right now. For those who are familiar with MCP, Model Control Protocol, MCP. MCP is a protocol that lets you write a natural language wrapper around your AI, your API, so that machines can write AI API calls themselves. And it's called MCP. It's the latest thing. We're doing a little bit of POCing right now. We're hoping to have a test MCP server written for Spira, and that will actually let you tell the AI like, show me what you go to Visual Studio Code, and you can say, give me all my tasks, and it will say, okay, here's Adam, here's all your tasks. And it will go into it'll write an API call into Spira, get the task, get back, write it into my little form, and dump it in Visual Studio Code. So MCP is the way to do that, and that is actually part of something we're working on. We're doing a little bit of we're doing a bit of basically a POC, just to see how that will look. But that's something that you release onto GitHub. It'll be a public GitHub repo, and you just will import it into your existing AI chatbot, and it will basically become it's like middleware for chatbots to be able to interact with Spira using the API without having to write API calls by hand. So
Okay.
the answer is yes, we are doing it.
There you go, Daniel. Orland, is there a plan for Repeats to behave more like VS Code plus Copilot, where it can interact to all files, add suggestions, and allow to make changes to our files?
What you're asking for is agentic AI workflows in the Repeats editor. I would say that it is a plan. It's not happening this year. It's something we are looking to do. It's again, we're fully aware of what VS Code can do. We're all using Copilot and Amazon Q, and I've been playing around with some stuff. It's pretty amazing. Yeah, the intention is to do more of that. I mean, right now in Repeats, you can obviously ask questions. It can help you, but it doesn't necessarily take action and write build files out for you. Yeah, but it certainly, the plan is to be able to do more of that. Before we go too far down that road, we wanted to basically get Inflectra AI in place, so that way we're not requiring all of our customers to start connecting all these different models up to do some of this stuff. But yeah, that is something that we are aware of what the VS Code does, and it's something that the team I know is excited to sort of look at how to add.
Okay, John's asking, have you looked at Inflectra AI testing and evaluating the implementation of AI in other apps, identifying hallucinations, etc.? Great question, John.
So the question is, are we using it to test other apps for hallucinations, or are we worried about hallucinations in Spira? Just make sure I understand the question.
Yeah, John,
Is
if you
it
wouldn't mind just clarifying that in the chat. In the meantime, while we wait for that, June's asking, it would be interesting to have the MCP and Repeats as well, so we can interact directly with ADO work items. Yes, it would be.
so okay? So you mean having Repeats be an MCP client
Yeah,
is
for the
my
ADO
understanding? Yeah,
integration.
because ADO. Well, actually, I do not. I don't think the last time I saw ADO did not have a MCP server written yet. Okay, well here's my MCP. Where is it? Example servers. So I know that this is the MCP website. This is the kind of definitive guide of MCP. So I'm actually looking at this, so it's right up here. GitHub and GitLab definitely have, as you can see here, they have MCP servers, and Git does too. And a third party's written one for Jira. I didn't see one, but it may have been added for ADO. Our aim is to have Spira listed here as one of the standard official MCP servers. And this allows you to basically do things in Visual Studio Code and other IDE, any tool, and automate the application. So that way you can go into, say, Visual Studio Code or your favorite tool, and Spira becomes just another data source. So Spira is going to enable that. Jira has enabled that. I haven't seen one for ADO yet available. Now, there may be something within Visual Studio that's connected directly, but certainly as a sort of standard MCP server, it wasn't on the list here, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means I haven't seen it.
So
It's moving,
John
MCP is
has
going fast.
clarified testing hallucinations created by AI in other apps. So using Inflectra AI
Oh,
in other apps.
I mean, right now, Inflectra.ai is simply writing test cases. So you'd have to write a requirement that's, so yeah, if you wrote a requirement that was, describing the functionality, and then then you ask it in the description of the requirement to ensure that the test case it generates includes negative testing against hallucinations, it would probably write you test cases that cover it.
We love
Right
your
now, we're
difficult
not.
questions, John.
Yeah, I know. Right now, we don't automatically do that, but if you wrote it in the description of the requirement as part of the requirement, then it would obviously do that as part of the test. And that's a
Have
long-winded answer.
Let me know in the chat window if I've missed any of your questions, or email me. I've put my email address in the window. I will share that we've invited Adam to come join us in Sydney towards the end of July. So if you want a face-to-face meeting and you're in Sydney and you're not coming to testing talks, let us know. We will then en route to Manila to meet with several of you. So those that I've proposed a meeting, please let me know, ideally within the week, so we can block our flight times and schedules to meet with you. And yes, you can openly talk about the future roadmap, as we always involve you in the future development. So thank you, June. Thank you, Orland. Really appreciate you being part of the beta as well at times.
One question just came in that's like a good general one. How will the subscription cost work if I up the number of licenses in SpiraPlan? The AI costs do go up as well. That's the one is the thing. It does increase. But it's scaled. It's not linear. And the second thing is, if you buy it, okay, we are being very generous, I want to say. If you buy Inflectra AI now, you get the super discount price of $1 a user a month. If you buy it now, that's for the length of your subscription. And no one's saying how long the subscription can be. If you buy it for 10 years, you get that for 10 years. So it's as long as your subscription is. So you can
That
lock
is
in that
very
price.
generous. So if you're clever, you might block out 3 years, 5 years, and get the discount with it, because come July 1, the prices will go up to standard rate card. Is that right, Adam? And
Yep,
I think
exactly.
it's
Like $9 a user a month. Yeah.
$19.99 per user per month US. Yeah. The
No, it's not.
cap.
It's not 19 per month. That's 19 for three.
Oh,
It's
okay.
yeah. It's not quite that bad. It's on the website. Actually, the pricing, if you're curious, just to go to Inflectra AI, and you can see the pricing is right here. If I scroll down, there's a table.
Yeah.
So right now it's $1 a user a month, and
Oh,
then it's
$9.
19 for three. because it's 9 for 1. So we basically, but we scale it down. So it's not 300. So when you get to 300 users, it's not like 3,000. It's 13. We are, the percentage flattens as you buy more. So we are trying to scale it for the higher user tiers, because we know that not everyone's going to use it all the time.
Email me if you'd like a quote, or you can also buy this through your customer portal. Great. Well,
Absolutely.
On that note, thank you for attending, and thanks for the fabulous questions. Keep the questions coming, keep the feedback coming. Love all the interactions. And yes, let us know if you've got any special requests for Adam's time. We will have Dr. Sriram with us as well, visiting Melbourne. He will be guest lecturing at RMIT. Thanks, Nilüfer. And he is available to do some workshops around guiding customers on better practice. He hates me using the word best practice. Partners too, if you want any of our time, let us know. Drop me a line. Thank you. Have a great day. Thanks, Adam.
Bye, guys.